everybody. Hope you enjoy your podcast.
Thanks, Mr. Norwal. What is up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of Father Dynasty. I'm your fatherly elf, Chew, here in the manhole, here to talk fatherhood, fantasy football, and everything in between. As you can see, I'm dressed as Buddy the Elf, so I can help navigate you through the best of tips from 2022 from my many Father Dynasty interviews. And started off in a great spot with Kyle Yates of the Fantasy Playbook. I got a chance to talk to him about, fatherhood, starting the Fantasy Playbook. As when I spoke to him, it was in its earlier stages. And he had a great note on work-life balance. So here's Kyle.
Look, what would you say is the best tip for fathers in terms of work-life balance, or kind of, certainly if you're starting something up professionally, how you kind of keep all that going and keep everyone appreciated?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely easier said than done, right? To not let other things slip, or not let, the family priorities slip. But that has been something that I have made placed a huge emphasis on as I have, had kids and stepped into marriage. So I think for me, it's always been like defining the top priorities, that those are going to be my faith, my family, and then anything else with work comes after that. So with my family, and then trying to start up a business and run a business. And I know that, a lot of people listening, their work is crazy, can be crazy. You can easily put in more than 40 hours a week into that. And it's like that with running a business, right? There, you could be working 24/7 and you would always have something to do. So it really is just trying to set those boundaries, set those guidelines to really say, okay, 5 o'clock hits and I'm stepping away and I'm putting my phone on do not disturb, that kind of thing, that level of intentionality to be able to just say, I'm stepping away, because if I don't, I'm going to be split. I'm going to have split attention, and I don't want that. I can always carve out time after the kids go to bed, after I spend time with my wife. I can always come back to the desk and continue working. Like I said, there's always something to do. But in that moment where you're having that split attention, that's going to be what ultimately causes some sacrifice there from your wife's perspective, from your kids' perspective. So it's really something where you have to be intentional. You have to place those boundaries and guidelines, especially if you are super busy with work. Treasure each day, right? Your kid is never going to be 3.5 years old again. Your kid is never going to be 4 months old again, whatever the case may be. So making sure that the work opportunities will come and go. They will always come and go. However, your family is always going to be there. It's always going to have to be a priority. So that's just the main thing, is making sure that you're setting those boundaries and guidelines, because for people, especially like myself, we enjoy work. I enjoy working and I could do it all day long, but it's I have to be super intentional to place those boundaries and guidelines to make sure that when I am stepping away, I'm stepping away.
That's a great tip by Kyle. And next up is a topic that would make even me an angry elf, and that is vasectomies. So here's my buddy Tyler on when is the best time to schedule a vasectomy.
I said I would do it if we had a boy. My only stipulation is that I want to do it right before March Madness, which I realize is a super popular time. So if we have to wait a year or whatever, we're just going to have to wait a year, because that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So, I want to sit at home, whatever rig I got to have on to have the huevos nice and comfortable. And I want to sit there and, I don't know, can you drink beer after a vasectomy?
Son of a nutcracker. Why didn't I think of that? Well, jumping over to a tip from a true doctor, Dr. Vig, had him on, and he gave a great tip for those prospective doctors, those prospective content creators out there to get going.
So what would be maybe a key point of advice that you give, kind of one of each? So those aspiring doctors or physicians, or those people, thinking to get into the fantasy space, and just a piece of advice for each of those.
Oh, this is a good one. I don't necessarily consider myself anywhere in the fantasy football content creation space. Honestly, Alfredo does all the work. I just show up and look pretty and give you great dad jokes and puns. And that's not even a joke. He really does do all the work. I just kind of show up. I mean, I help with the research stuff and stuff too, of course. But even there, Alfredo does the big chunk. So I don't know that I'm the best to give advice about that. But here's what I will say. I've now gone to the expo a couple of times over the last 2 years. I have interacted with so many wonderful and kind people like you, Father Chew. I'm sticking with the Father Chew thing. the people here are just very kind. Like, it doesn't matter if your show has a single viewer, as Alfredo's show did initially, or 40,000 views, as I cannot believe 40,000 people. I mean, 10,000 of it was probably just me and Alfredo watched like one of our more recent. But it doesn't matter how many, or hundreds of thousands or millions. I'm not even sure how many the ballers get, but like, this is such a kind and welcoming space. And if you want to do something and you want to have fun doing it, just like ask anyone for advice. People will give you like advice on like ring lights and microphones and like a setup like yours, for example. The manhole setup looks fantastic, way better than my medical school diploma that's sitting behind me on the ground, and my Mark Brunell that's hanging from, but people will give you so much advice. They're very kind. Yes, there's negativity in this space, like there can be in everything else. I would just say, forget that. That's what the mute button's for. The block is for. Be around, hang out with the nice people. Ask them. People will tell you what to do. Ask me. I'll point you in the direction of smart people. And for medicine, I would say the same thing. Just, medicine can be tough to get into. It is more and more competitive every year, just because people really want to go into medicine. I will say, if you're thinking about going into it at all for the money, probably a really bad idea. Med school is super expensive. I owe Uncle Sam let's just say I owe Uncle Sam way more than $250,000. But I'm thankful for I'm thankful to Uncle Sam for helping me get to med school. People can't pay that much to get to med school. So don't do it for the money. If you really enjoy a long road where you may not have a real job until you're 30 plus years old, as I practically was when I had like my first supervising physician job, and you really enjoy what medicine does and what you can do in medicine, then go for it. And my advice would just be, if you choose that road and you're down that path, don't forget everything else that brings you joy. It can be so easy to get caught up in everything that medicine makes you do. Like you're convinced to thinking that you have to do research and you have to volunteer all the time, and that you're not allowed to have any free time to do things that, that re-energize you or recharge you. And that's what I would say. Make sure you focus on what gives you wellness and what makes you happy and what brings you joy. And as long as you do that, you'll be a fantastic doctor.
Yep. Then I traveled through the 7 levels of the candy cane forest. Oh, hold on. Sometimes I really just need to unwind from making all those etch a sketches. And Joe Pepe has some great tips for that. So check this out. Yep. Then I went past through the sea of twirly swirly gumdrops.
But one that I had seen, I liked it a lot, and kind of lead into a question. So you said the bottom of the market will always be saturated, but the top will always have blue waters. So kind of in relation to what that was answering, what is your best tip for content creators in the fantasy space?
Oh, man. I think I could drop like 10,000 tips, but I think the most important one is to know that you're going to get burnt out. I see so many people saying, like, try to avoid burnout with this and avoid burnout with that. But if you're trying for those blue waters at the top, you got to put the extra in, and it's going to happen, and you're going to get burnt out. You absolutely have to plan something that just involves putting the damn screen down, the phone, the computer, the iPad, however you do it. Just put it away. Like, man, again, my girlfriend has been very helpful with that. Like, she brought it up. She's like, you're just constantly like on, and I could see it's wearing you out. You need to like get off. You don't need to argue every point. And that's the only thing I'm going to merge into the first point of putting the screen down. You don't have to fight with every troll. I thought I did. I'm like, oh, it's going to boost my algorithm. Nobody cares. It doesn't help your algorithm at that point. Some people just want to watch the world burn, like the Dark Knight movie says. And it's just not worth it. So put the screen down, enjoy the day. If you're watching your home team, like when I watch the Eagles, I try not to be on my phone now because I want to watch the game. Last year, I was spending all day like, whoa, what a catch by Mooney, what a catch by Smith, what a run by Sanders. And I couldn't remember anything that was happening in the damn game. Like I missed it because I was looking down. So you're going to get burnt out. It's going to happen. I was literally texting earlier and I'm like, damn, I booked a lot of things this week. Like Friday, I'm just going to chill. Like you got to give yourself that break because you're going to hit burnout if you're really, truly pushing for this. It's going to happen. It's a 20-week season and there's still the off-season stuff you want to do. Just find a way to work in some life and do it without screen time. No Netflix, no iPads, no phones. Go out, take your girlfriend or husband or whatever on a date, like whoever you are, just get away from the screens, have real human interaction. It recharges you 10 times faster than anything else, I promise you.
Man, I feel like such a cotton-headed ninny-muggins for not thinking of that. Well, thank you, Joe. Well, jumping over to more tips on balance, let's go back to Alfredo. Alfredo. That's fun to say. Alfredo.
How do you manage that work-life balance? What is maybe a tip that you have if there's a saying you just say to yourself when it's just getting nuts?
It's I gotta be honest, it gets so difficult. And like I've actually had to stop sometimes, and even in my free time I find myself like everything becomes habitual, right? And like it just becomes a habit where you're just like, okay, let me keep doing my research, let me keep prepping for the next episode, let me start looking at this, looking at that. Because like when it comes to our show, like I cut the audio, the video, I create the graphics, like a lot of the stuff is scheduling guests, things like that. And then for the business, I primarily run that, and so it's just just from the personal standpoint, it gets hard. It gets hard to just shut that off. So it's sometimes it's this is just a kind of a stupid movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a Hot Fuzz. And so like one of the jokes that he makes is like, you don't know how to switch off. And like, that's kind of like my thing is like, I try to teach myself and remind myself to switch off. And like, you don't have to be in work all the time. And so I remember my brother-in-law asked me, when's the last time, what have you played this video game? I'm like, no, dude. What about this one? No, man. He's like, well, do you play video games? And I'm like, dude, I don't remember the last time I played a video game. And like, so it's kind of get myself switched off. Like I'll throw on NCAA 14, like I have that on the old school PlayStation. Every once in a while I'll play like a Batman game, or someone gifted me the new Guardians of the Galaxy game for PlayStation. I'm just playing Halo with the wife. So like video games has been a good way to kind of decompress. But I'm not gonna lie, I'll admit it. Like I still watch the cartoons that I watched from when I was a kid, like Batman the Animated Series and like Justice League stuff. And like if it's on HBO Max, I'm probably watching it, man. Like it's a great way for me to just decompress and not think about being an adult for a moment. Like I could be a kid for that 30 minutes of that episode, then go back to real life.
Yeah.
Candy cane. Oh, sorry, just writing my grocery list. Next up is Cody, and he has a great tip for those content creators out there. Candy corn and syrup.
One piece of advice for content creators, whether it be someone who kind of hasn't started yet or someone who's kind of doing it, kind of lost and trying to figure out, do I even want to keep doing this? What would be like maybe one thing of the many things that you feel like is most important?
Man, this is tough. I don't know if I could dial it into one, but I'm going to say two. And I'm not going to give you the cheesy network, talk to people, ask questions, grow in the community. Yeah, you've been told that time and time again. My two things are start, press the button, type the tweet, record the video. Don't sit here and say, well, I was going to start my podcast, but I'm going to buy another microphone first. And then I need a better webcam. My webcam isn't good enough. And well, I need more followers before I start my podcast, because if I don't have enough followers, nobody's going to listen. So, well, I'm going to get some followers first. And it's like, well, I don't want to tweet this because maybe people question my authority. And I don't know if I want to tweet, my fantasy analysis, because what if somebody follows it and then I'm not right? Start, tweet. No, nobody ever became an expert by watching. Muhammad Ali did not become the best boxer in the world by watching other people box. He boxed. Like Picasso didn't become the best painter of all time by going to the museums, the Louvre, and looking at paintings. He painted. Not all of his paintings are, not everything is the Mona Lisa. Not every podcast is going to be the fantasy footballers. Not every video you make is going to be the next Quentin Tarantino film. But Quentin Tarantino has other movies that he made prior to Pulp Fiction and the great ones. Start. The other thing that I have is, and this is, my engineering brain, it is what it is. Every single app that you use gives you data. Instagram tells you what you should post. because it gives you feedback. TikTok does the same thing. Twitter does the same thing. Listen, look at the data, look at the numbers, say, oh, my tweets do well when I tweet about this at this time. Continue to do that. Be consistent and show up every day doing that, right? If you are a fantasy creator, right, and you've noticed that your waiver wire column does the best if you post it at noon every Monday or every Tuesday, whatever that is, every Monday and every Tuesday, post and be consistent and show up every week, because eventually people build expectations, and that's where greatness comes from, is expectations. They expect you to show up every week, and if you continue to do that, you'll continue to grow, right? Same with TikTok is a phenomenal feedback. It'll show you at the watch time, and it'll show you where people dropped off, and it'll show you what videos that people are gravitating towards. Post more of that. That doesn't mean that you have to sit here and only make, quarterback videos. No, but if quarterback videos are what do well on your channel, post one every day or every week, whatever's feasible for you. I'm not going to sit here and say, you have to post 3 times a day, every day. Do what you can do within your schedule, but be consistent and show up, because there are it happens in every day in real life, and it happens in content. Showing up is a skill. It's not easy to show up every day because life happens. You have kids, you have families, you have your job, right? If you're not doing this full time, show up, and people will show up for you because you've been there for them.
Well, the last tip is from Tommy, my brother-in-law and Finn's godfather, and it's all about, hold on. Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color? In your infinite wisdom as an uncle and as a godfather, what would you say is a great tip to bestow upon maybe soon-to-be or newly uncles and or godfathers?
I can talk a lot, but this one's pretty simple. Just show up. Just show up.
Yep.
If you're thinking of them, find a way to let them know you're thinking of them. If that's going through your sibling to tell them hi, do it. I found out that my nephew likes getting mail. So I could, begin sending postcards. You just have to listen to them, watch them, figure out their interest, and figure out how you can make them smile, because it won't take much. They just want to know that someone's paying attention to them. And whenever you show you care, sky's the limit.
Tommy, thank you for rounding out those tips from 2022. And I want to thank everyone who has been a guest on the podcast, who's been a part of it in any way. Certainly anyone who's been listening, been watching throughout this, over a year at this point. I sincerely appreciate it. Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, travel safe. And my buddy just actually texted me about a peep show. So I want to go get a look at my presents. So happy holidays.